Hey, John Ty here, and welcome to the Self-Publishing Summit. Got a great guest for you today. He's an entrepreneur with an amazing story. In fact, he went from an empty bank account and $80,000 in debt to retiring at the age of just 27. Today, he's the #1 best-selling author and has a six-figure-a-year passive income that lets him travel the world, live a life of personal freedom, while only doing the sort of work that he truly enjoys. He's the creator of the epic book launch, and the numbers he and his team are getting are quite incredible, with books regularly getting tens of thousands of downloads on Amazon, becoming multiple number one bestsellers, and generating thousands in royalties and thousands in leads. And today's going to talk about how you can do it too. Our guest today, Austin Netzley. Austin, welcome to the Self-Publishing Summit.
John, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here, and congratulations on what you've put on. Like, this is amazing. The self-publishing world really needs it, so happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, and great to have you here because, we've known each other for a few months now, and so I'm familiar with the numbers you've been doing, and we were chatting just before we came on air. I still think you're doing the numbers are crazy in a good way. So. Let's get into some of those results, but let's get into them first of all in the context of the book that you launched, which I think was December, and because I know you've done a lot of work for clients and helped a lot of other people do the same thing. But kick things off with what you did and the kind of numbers you got with your book.
Yeah, sure. So I'm new to the self-publishing world. I mean, so let's look back 6 months ago. I was just learning and finishing up my book. So I started a podcast, and quickly in the podcast, I learned, you know what, there's so many commonalities. There's so many common messages from the great guests that I've brought on. So I wanted to pull those out and write a book about it. And I thought the quickest way for me to kind of accelerate my online success was kind of associating myself with other people and using their story, because nobody wanted to hear about my story yet. Even though I had an investing business and some success, I wanted to use other people's story to kind of elevate to that next level. So anyhow, I wrote the book as I was traveling around the world, as you talked about, while I was retired, and technically still am, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I now work a ton, but nonetheless, I would do things that I want to do. But nonetheless, so I had the book in me, and I wanted to write it out, and I did that while I was traveling throughout Southeast Asia and whatnot. And last November 11th, I launched that book. And as we were leading up to the launch, there was this quote from Robert Kiyosaki that stuck in my head. He said, "It's called bestseller and not best writer." So I'm an engineer by degree. I was a numbers guy. I wasn't really ever great with communicating or words on paper. So I was like, all right, but I can become the bestseller. I can still become it. How do we do that? So I talked to over 30 different authors and just really pick their brain of what works, what didn't. And I'm talking about New York Times bestsellers, self-publishing bestsellers, Amazon, whatever it was, just to get some different insight. So my team just put in literally hundreds of hours of work, talked to every single person that we could. We did every single thing under the sun that we heard into my launch, and the numbers just blew us away. And the first day's results, John, we had just under 20,000 downloads, and the second day just under 12,000 downloads. So like that, we went from zero to a lot of people knowing who I was and what my brand was about. So we became 27-time #1 bestseller. We stayed at #1 in stocks, which is a pretty big category, for 98 days, which is absolutely unheard of. And this is in the paid side, right? So this is ahead of some of the most iconic books of all time. And again, I had a very small platform. My email list before I started, John, was under 500. So we're talking about a really, really small platform from the online standpoint. But we just did some different things that really made a big splash. And we talk about this tipping point. I'm sure we'll get into some different strategies and whatnot. But the whole methodology is to make such a big splash up front that it kind of carries you forward. So you get that word of mouth, you get that media attention, you get those opportunities that just change the game overnight. And from my, I had a successful investing business, but from my online business standpoint, it changed everything overnight. I went to a six-figure business with that specific business, literally like that. And whereas before I had failed basically with a launch and made it a couple $1,000. So just changes everything if you take it seriously. So I know we're going to talk into a lot more details, but what we did then is we started getting hundreds and hundreds of questions from people, right? And the entrepreneur in me, just like in you, you start to get a lot of questions. You start to see an opportunity, right? So people were curious about what we did. we didn't really know what we did. We tried 1,000 things, but we thought, you know what? Maybe we can do this again. We put in so much work. Let's try it again. So I was talking to my buddy, Peter Boog, and he was coming out with the book, and he was busy traveling, and he wanted to launch. I was like, you know what? You just go do your thing. Let us launch it for you. Let us see what we can do for you. And we launched his book about, I think, 2 or 3, I think it was 3 weeks after we launched my book. And same exact results. 27-time #1 international bestseller in the first 3 days. Went on to make him, or help make him, over $23,000 in royalties from that one book alone. And for self-publishing, for New York Times, but it doesn't matter what kind of book, $23,000 in royalties in the first month is absolutely amazing. So
Yeah.
we knew then that
was
was
just
kind
in
of
the first month.
That was in the first 30 days, exactly.
Yeah.
So we knew then that was validation for what we were doing, the strategies that we had. And we put in probably more work than everybody, but we had a very strategic approach about it. And then we went on from there and helped a lot of people do some amazing things, and have made every single person that has come through our program and our service a #1 bestseller many times over. So definitely excited about the results as well.
Yeah, that was really impressive stuff. And the other thing, the numbers are impressive. I mean, with yours, $32,000 within the first basically 48 hours is incredible. Great way of spreading the message and generating leads and stuff. But as well as the numbers, talk to us a little bit more about the opportunities that the book created for you, and if it's applicable for your clients as well, in terms of opening doors, generating business opportunities that maybe you had no idea were even there before, media opportunities, things like that.
Yeah, like I said, it changed everything. It changed everything for us. So could give you a couple of examples. So as I was leading up to the launch, I wanted to write for a couple of websites. Yahoo Finance is the biggest money website in the world. Business Insiders was one of my favorite websites. So I was reaching out to these big websites, and there were a bunch of others, and nothing. You don't hear anything back.
Crickets.
Guess what happened? As soon as you make a big splash, as soon as my book came out, literally within 48 hours, guess who calls? Yahoo Finance. Guess who calls right after that? Washington Post, the biggest U.S. newspaper. Guess who calls right after that? AOL.com. I'm sitting right next to President Obama on the AOL website. Huffington Post front page, Yahoo page. I'm a writer for Yahoo. I'm a writer for Business Insider now. So that changed overnight, just my credibility. Nothing changed about me, just to the external world, that I was a completely different person, right? And that's the beautiful thing, that if you do it right, that a book can do for you. So that's why we encourage people to take it so seriously now, because it literally does change everything overnight. And a couple other examples. So there were some people that were, as I was looking to launch a book in the best way, they wanted to charge me $25,000 for a program. This is 2 weeks before my launch. I'm like, nah, I don't think it's going to be worth it. So anyhow, we went and launched it on our own. Guess what happens? Within a week after my launch, I'm now signed up to do a partnership with them, where basically I'm going to be making $25,000 from just doing a simple partnership with them, literally in a 3-week period. That's how things change with that. And then I went from wanting to email certain people, and to emailing certain people back and forth that I had really looked up to, like Lewis Howes and some other people. It's just amazing what it changed overnight. And then from my customer standpoint, so I talked about going from $2,000 to $100,000, literally with nothing changing besides my credibility to the world. So it's unbelievable. If you do it right, everything changes. And we talk about that first major domino in the system being the book, because oftentimes, especially the people that we work with, there's more things that they want to do besides just the book, or they have at least more books down the line. And you can definitely do that and do it in a big way if you do it right.
Yeah. So I love the fact that it is that overnight thing, just literally, massive credibility in no time at all. And you talked about the people contacting you, emailing you, calling you, and all the opportunities that created sort of with the media and so on, and also business-wise. Did you set anything up to make sure you were able to take advantage of that, or was they just contacting you through your website, or did you do anything specific to make that possible for them?
Yeah. So the secret to success is to have success. Okay. So what I mean by that is, get on one big website or get one big opportunity, and guess what happens? Then they all come kind of feeding off from there. So we knew if we made a big enough splash, we were going to get somewhere, and we were going to basically, we put all this work in to have everything set up so that my time, or we didn't know we were going to have the results that we did, but I knew I was going to become a bestseller. I just made up my mind I was going to become a bestseller. Little did I find out it's fairly easy to become a bestseller. It's hard to get past that tipping point, but nonetheless, I did a ton of work, and my team was ready for me to basically spend my time using that time while we were number one wisely. I didn't know it was going to be over 100 days in total, you know. So I was ready to reach out to certain people. We created a top level press release and submitted in tons of different outlets, both kind of cannon shot outlets as well as individual specific people. And we just kind of leverage relationships, and I just got emails most of the time from people. And on my website, on the contact page, there was a form, but there was also my email. So that's how most people contacted me, actually. And then the first major one was Yahoo Finance. And then from there, I think the other ones either saw me there or definitely saw the book. I mean, everybody in the world that was related to finance saw my book over a 2-day period. So maybe they saw it there as well. I'm not real sure. But the thing is to put all these effort into a short period of time so that you do have everybody that is anybody see your book.
Yeah, and that's interesting. And I remember seeing your book when it was launched, and that was before we met. So, and I remember seeing it all over Amazon and so on. Good. So, yeah. And what about just staying on the results thing? It sounds like you know, we got a situation really where, you know, there are doors opening that some of them you didn't even know were there, probably. Would that be fair to say?
So I have a investing business, a personal finance / wealth business. Now I have a book publishing business, right? That opportunity, it wasn't even in my mind 6 months ago. And now it's just an insane business. But the relationships and the partnerships that have come from that are just unbelievable. I would say, as an entrepreneur, especially somebody starting out, the only thing that you can do is go forward as hard as you possibly can. And once you open one door, guess what is on the other side of that? 15 more doors. Open one more of those doors, guess what's on the other side? 15 more doors. And you just exponentially just open up your world, your opportunities, your income, right? So just go forward as hard as possible. So I was, tell you a little bit about I started this as a hobby, the Yo Pro Wealth podcast and the business. It was something I was really, really passionate about. I had financial freedom from my other business and didn't have to worry about things. I was traveling around the world, but I was like, I can't not do anything. I want to do something that I'm really, really passionate about. So I started that as a hobby, and I got to talk to amazing people, put myself outside my comfort zone. And then I was like, all right, there's some traction here. I'm getting a lot of emails from listeners of the podcast. And I just went forward. I just kept moving forward, and I didn't have a focus on making money. I had a focus on just moving forward and scaling and getting my message out to as many people as possible, getting more confident, learning more about my own message. And as soon as I got to the point where I was getting ready to release the book, I was like, all right, I've got all these programs ready. I got all these ideas in my mind. I know what the challenge that people have. I'm ready to do it. But then still, I needed that book, that credibility standpoint, because I was still only, let's say, online for 11 months total. So that's not really long in the online space. Still pretty new, but that credibility factor that it added in, plus all the work that I had done to kind of just go forward and listen to people and connect with people, hear their challenges, find some opportunities, and just keep moving forward. The opportunities that it opens up are amazing. So that's important if you're an author or if you're any other type of entrepreneur or anything. You just kind of keep moving forward because the opportunities will show up. And so many people, John, they pivot, right? They pivot. So you keep going, you go 90 days, you see a better opportunity. So go and chase that. That's fine.
Object syndrome, yeah.
Well, there's a difference between bright shiny object and chasing something that's the best opinion or best opportunity at any given time. So as an investor, I'm always looking at, okay, what's the best thing that I can do right now? What's the best thing that's going to provide me the best return based on the risk? And that may change every 90 days. It's smart from an entrepreneurial standpoint to have some type of tunnel vision and go forward long enough so that you can tell if it works. But sometimes you do have a big opportunity that comes up that you weren't really expecting that you can pivot towards. And that's exactly what I've done with the book. And I still have other things, or the book publishing and Epic Launch stuff. So nonetheless, as long as you're moving forward, the opportunities are there, then you can decide for yourself what the best route is for you long term.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you emphasize the importance of a book for, again, that sort of instant credibility. And I think there are so many things that we can do. And, this is something I talk about a lot on my podcast. And the podcast is Publish, Position, Profit. And the publishing part, it doesn't just refer to books. It refers to, it might be a YouTube channel, it might be a blog, it might be, Facebook ads, email broadcasts, all sorts of different ways that we can get our message out through all sorts of social media and so on. But of all the different things, there's nothing quite has the credibility of a book, especially a really good book. And when you got the kind of results that you've been getting and your clients have been getting, even more so. So that's fantastic. So
and before we go on, John, even more important than that, Amazon's the best place to be, in my opinion, because they have their credit card out.
Yeah.
Right? They're buyers. So I've done some different studies to see what the value of someone is to me in my online businesses. A podcast listener is someone that's typically listening for free. It's much harder, surprisingly, to convert them into a ticket, any sizable amount of client on the back end. And most of the people that we work with do have a back end. They do have other products. So the readers, it's the best source that we found for leads. They're targeted leads. They are, like I said, they're buyers. Everything is so beautiful about it. So if you can learn how to separate yourself from the pack on Amazon, the world's in your hands, really, for whatever your niche is. So that's what we try to do.
Well, I mean, that's another great point. And interesting that you get a higher, I guess, lifetime customer value from those people you find through Amazon. And one of the things I sort of joke about, but it's true, is that with Amazon, you're getting paid to generate leads if you've got the right sort of ethical bribe in your book, and which is pretty cool. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing organic stuff and doing paid advertising, all of that. But if you can get paid to generate leads and they happen to have a high lifetime customer value, it's definitely what we call a win-win.
It's unbelievable. So I haven't thought about that it is, they are paid leads, but if you set up the funnel right, you've got somebody that reads your book. All right, so you're credible to them. They are probably, hopefully, you read a decent book. They're hot and ready for more. If you have your funnel set up right, you can take advantage of that and give them more. And what does more mean? More means potentially more income for you as well. So we've done a lot of stuff to really make sure people stay in motion and that they do turn into a lifetime, because there's a whole new level. There's some things that you can't provide necessarily in a book that are life-changing for them if you get them in a membership program or whatever it is. And we've tried to do that. So
yeah. And I think there's an element of, with a book, if somebody reads your book, you're essentially, and I don't mean this in a cynical way, but there's a strong element of they're pre-sold because they spent 5, 6, 7, 8 hours with you, hearing your ideas, demonstrating that your subject, that your stuff, that you can provide value. So, and you develop that and the trust and rapport and all of those good things. So
exactly.
Very powerful.
So yeah, exactly. So I loved your example. We talk about a book being the best tripwire in the world. And if people know what a tripwire is, so if you do have multiple products, basically it's proven that the best way to ultimately sell, let's say a $500 product, is to first of all sell them something between, let's say, $7 and $17, something lower cost that you're basically going to over deliver on that value that you're providing. Connect and build that trust and relationship. Guess what? So when they see a $500 product, they're much, much, much more likely to be able to do that. So a book is the best tripwire in the world, we believe.
Yeah, that's cool. And I've not heard it described like that before, but that makes total sense. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, it's funny. Sorry to keep interrupting you, but there's so many ideas that are coming. We've kind of pushed away from some of the other efforts that we've done just so we can focus on getting more books out there. So you and I were talking beforehand, but we are such believers in what is potentially in front of people that we're kind of focusing so much more on that stuff. So it's unbelievable and it's exciting. So anybody in the self-publishing world, first of all, you can become a self-publisher or self-published author very, very easily. You can become a bestseller. You can access thousands upon thousands of people. And hopefully our story and other people's stories are that last inspiration that you need to really get past that level.
Yeah. I would definitely second that. It is inspirational. I mean, like I say, I've known your figures, for a while now, and I still get impressed every time I hear them or read them. So definitely inspirational stuff. So, I mean, let's segue on that into the Epic book launch itself. Now, obviously, you've done this for you. You have a team that you work with. You do this for clients. You have a course as well. But let's go through some of the steps involved so that, people can learn how they could do this for themselves as well.
Yeah. So from a high level standpoint, I would just say we take a very strategic approach as far as slowing down the process a little bit and having reasons for basically everything we do. And then also, there's no one secret formula. I wish there was a magic bullet. And maybe the magic bullet is the service that we provide so that people don't have to worry about it, right? But it's not the cheapest, but it is obviously worth it. But we do a lot of different things, and they're all very simple things that anybody can do. So if you just check off the certain boxes as you lead up towards the launch, then anybody can do these things. But the challenge is, John, most people don't put in the same effort in marketing the book as they do in writing the book, right? People think that the book will sell itself. So we've kind of flipped that on its head and really, really, really focus on the marketing piece and know that that's the only way that the book is going to really change things overnight. Because let's say 1 out of a million books will catch fire without any marketing and get to the next level, but let's not play those odds, right?
Yeah,
so
it's like playing the lottery, isn't it? Expecting to.
It's worse than playing the lottery, right? So it's I forget what the point was. So let's go through kind of the high level.
You're saying that it's just like a strategic approach, and you do a lot of different things, which are simple, but most authors don't do them because they focus on the writing rather than the marketing.
Exactly. So we go through basically 5 phases, and the first phase is just the planning phase. Now, this is very simply where you just map out exactly what you want your book to accomplish and how you're going to do it. So the first part of that question is, what do you really want your book to accomplish? So do you want leads? Do you want just credibility? Do you want speaking opportunities? I want people to get really, really clear on what their main goal is. And oftentimes it's all of these things, right? It's income, it's leads, it's media attention, whatever it is, JV partnerships, whatever it is. But the more clarity that you have on what your priorities are, the more clear that you can direct your marketing approach to be able to fit those things. And the planning phase, like again, with my book, I outlined the book. I changed the flow so many different times. I got it in front of my launch team, that's another crucial thing, before I even wrote the first words. And by the time I started to write, I had a very clear vision for what that book was. And that made the writing process super, super easy. So I heard like Tim Ferriss and other people talking about you need to spend 12 to 24 months at least writing your book. It took me a couple months, and that's like through all the editing process. And it's a 50,000 plus. At first I wrote 83,000 words, but then I cut it back. So it's a pretty intensive book, but it wasn't nearly as hard as I had expected, just because we did a lot of work up front in the planning phase. So that's number 1. Number 2 is the production phase. And this is where you really go through and create a New York Times bestseller worthy product. Now, the beautiful thing is you can do this for very, very cheap. I mean, we hired free contractors from and freelancers from Elance, from Odesk, and sometimes paid them very, very small sums to do tasks that basically would take a lot of time and a lot of effort for us to learn how. Talk about formatting, proofreading, editing, content editing, or creative content editing, cover design, all these different elements, even social media and things. Basically, you can outsource everything. And what I want people to do and take away from this phase is figure out what your greatness is and focus on that and get rid of everything else. So as self-published authors, John, as you know, it's hard for us to let go of some tasks, right? We want to do everything ourselves. We're often bootstrapping and trying to save $100 here or $500 there, whatever it is. But once you see the value that and really believe in that value that you're going to get on the back end, then you can start to really understand what your time's worth. And once we did that, and I started to basically get rid of different tasks and start to build a team, my gosh, my life became so much easier, so much less stressful. Got a lot more done, obviously, and just changed everything. So from cover design, really important to take that seriously, because the world will judge your book by its cover. But also from the production side, I want to talk about something super important that we do, which is we basically test every single step along the way. When we're talking about titles, subtitles, cover designs, even the so especially like lead landing pages, and even copy for sales copy, of course, but even copy for like Twitter links and different things that we're putting out there on social media. We're testing every single thing along the way in a small way before we go and do a big launch, just so we're ready for it. So the production thing is just about getting everything kind of lined up and from a mechanical situation ready to go. And the third piece of the production phase is actually getting it up on Amazon. And what you want to do is create a very professional sales page, because that's actually your most important sales page. So once we talk about what we do in the epic launch phase, we literally drive or get the books that we promote in front of millions of people. So then it's a matter of really converting as many people as possible. So with testing, if we make a 5% improvement in something, that's a really huge number at the end of the day. And let's say 1% of those people turn into clients of a $2,000 product. Like we're talking about big numbers at the end of the day, just by making these small tweaks. So again, we're probably taking it more seriously than most people would, but the impact, the kind of residual impact of all these small steps just is night and day difference.
Yeah, it's sort of almost exponential, isn't it? When you have a lot of multiple things, and maybe a couple of percent here, 5% here, 10, 20% there, that can double or triple your overall result.
It absolutely does. And the beautiful thing is because the compound effect, right? So it's one of my favorite books of all time, is just things just grow. And the thing with authorship is, and anything with marketing, is there's this tipping point. So the goal is to get to that tipping point, right? And don't, I like to tell people to not think about $1 million. Just think about that first $10,000. How are we going to get that first $10,000? And from a book standpoint, how do we just get to that certain level? So we don't have to think about all the things afterwards. We just have to get to that level. And by doing all these small things, we're making that leap, the exponential leap that you talk about, where we do get to that tipping point where all the opportunities that a client is looking for kind of open up. And then the third phase that we get into is pre-launch. Now, this is where you kind of get your ducks in a row, get everything ready, because during the launch, it's going to be pretty busy. And like I said, you want to take advantage of that time at the top. So you want to have everything ready in advance. And that includes, who are you going to ask for with reviews? Because reviews are basically everything within the Amazon algorithm. And I'm exaggerating. There's a lot of things to go into play, but rankings or reviews are super, super important. Who are you going to reach out to? Who do you want to reach out to? And from a partnership standpoint or from a media standpoint, where are you going to send your press release? Get your press release ready, first of all. What else? Preparing social media. So basically, we had all of our social media ready to go, so that we just basically on launch day and during the launch week, we just have to press go or just let things happen, because social media is beautiful nowadays that you can just have everything or so many things automated. Emails, I sent hundreds of emails. We had those ready to go and automated. So the pre-launch phase is about two things: building buzz and getting ready to go. So it's really important to do that first thing, which very few people do, is build buzz. Lead up to that launch. Share some tidbits. Get people really warm and ready to get to want to buy your book. Because you look at the movie industry. So what they do is they put out a trailer, let's say 2 years in advance sometimes.
We had a classic example this week, right?
What's that?
We had the Star Wars trailer coming out just a couple of days ago.
I don't watch TV, so I didn't see it, but I'm sure it's all over the place. But
I saw it on the interweb.
Oh, okay, yeah. So what they do is they give a little taste, and then what do? Then they go and get it in front of influencers that have basically movie review places, right? So so what do we do as a self-publisher? We give little tidbits as we're leading up to it. but we're in the back, we're also going and reaching to influencers, getting that book in front of them to get editorial reviews. All right, that's the second element, and we're leading up and doing this. So we're pulling a bunch of lessons from other industries, how they do big, huge, epic launches, and applying it to the self-publishing world. Because again, most writers, great writers, not great marketers. So we were like, all right, that's the big opportunities. Let's try to learn how to do that. And that's what we're trying to do. So that's it with the pre-launch phase. But we're leading up, just kind of getting people ready to explode, and then phase number 4 is where we just release the magic out into the world. And what we do, and what we found to make the most amount of money, is to actually give away the book for free at first. And what this does is get to that virality standpoint where something goes viral, or get to that point where so many people have your book that kind of word of mouth takes over and your book carries on for a long time, or makes such a big splash. And the only way to make such a big splash is to have a undeniable offer. And most times the best way to do that, especially with a small platform, is to give something away for free, right? But you make such a big splash that it carries over. And what we do is build all this huge momentum up front, and we keep the book free 1 day, 2 days, never more than 3 days. And then we transition into paid and just ride that momentum right through the start. But we just make such a big splash up front. Our average, John, and day number 1 is probably around 17,000 downloads or something. So we've kind of continued those big numbers that we started off with my book at 20,000. And we've even had some books in the first day have over 23,000 downloads. We got one book up to number 1 overall, several books up to number 2 overall. And these are mostly nonfiction books, which in the nonfiction world, there's usually what, 3 or 4 or 5 in the top 100. Well, we're moving all of them into the top 10, which is unbelievable, right? Yeah. So it can all happen if you do the work and get ready for it and squeeze it into a tight window and just let things happen. So that's kind of it from phase 4. And then the other element of phase 4 is to take advantage of that time at the top. This is when you reach out to influencers. This is when you try to build JV partners. This is when you share your success, because nothing breeds success quite like success. I mean, if you look at people that you admire, they want to associate themselves with successful people. So by this time, you're, let's say, a 20-time #1 bestseller all over the world: Australia, Canada, UK, Germany, France, whatever it is. We usually cover at least 5 to 7 to sometimes more countries where we're #1. And people want to hear about that. Once we're at this point, the way that we kind of continue the social media push is starting to share those big success things. So if somebody sees, oh, this book's had 30,000 downloads in the last 3 days, and it's only $1.99, I'm going to go buy it. Like, that's what people are thinking, right? So really have that success, and that changes everything from a sales standpoint, from the other opportunities. So I kind of reiterate myself several times here, John, but I think it's so important to take away.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, so what we do in phase 5 then is turn that momentum and everything that we've done so far into big dollars. And this is called just the post-launch phase. So most people don't follow through. So you really want to set things up so that you're following through. Okay, what are you doing now? Do you have a product, or do you have your funnel set up so that people are coming in? Remember, they're hot and ready to buy. Let's take advantage of time to make sure that they do so. This is when so hopefully you've taken your opportunity to reach out to big websites or partners, whatever. Continue to blog for them or write for them, or continue to scale those relationships, because now you're up here. Just make sure that you don't fall off, right? So you want to continue to scale and scale and scale and keep the momentum going. And if you do it right, then you can definitely do so. And whether it's offering products, whether it's doubling your coaching price because now you're a 20-time #1 bestseller, like people have done that. And everybody, again, needs to create that vision up front for what they want to accomplish. Now, phase number 5 is where you really put that into action and make sure that you follow through with it. And then even from the book standpoint, make sure you're still continuing to do things, because a lot of times people go and they send their book to a lot of people, and it doesn't really quite pick up, and then it falls back down, and they just kind of give up on it inside. But that's a lot of work that you put in there. Might as well continue to sell that. And what we've done with my book over time is actually raise the price on average. So we've kind of done pretty much the opposite of everything that most people do, and hopefully it's worked out fairly well for us.
Yeah, So with the post-launch thing again, this you kind of got to get things set up to a significant extent before you launch. I mean, so you talk about funnels and having products. You want to make sure those are in place uh, before you get that success, so you're ready to capitalize on it. And you mentioned pricing there, and I was going to ask you about that. What is your, you said maximum 3 days where you give the book away for free to
Yeah.
get that initial momentum going, get those, tens of thousands of downloads, and obviously driving leads as well. People are opting in and all that sort of good stuff. When you switch to paid, what is your pricing strategy for that? Obviously immediately, and then over time, as you mentioned.
Yeah, good question. So what we do is basically do this yo-yo effect with our pricing. So we're always monitoring sales and pricing, and we want to basically have as many, it depends on the person's goals, but let's say just your average person who wants a little bit of everything, right? What we do is we go from free to 99 cents, and we keep it at 99 cents usually for a couple of days, one and a half or maybe 2 days, and we get up to the top of the charts there and get up really high, and then we raise the price at $2.99. And $2.99 is like the first threshold where you're actually going to start to make some money with royalties. So we always, 90% of authors are interested in making some good royalties. So we try to get up to $2.99, where we're number one in several different categories by this point in time. We'll go to $2.99, and then we try to go up one more time, whether it's $5.99, $7.99, $4.99. We have some books that go up to $9.99 or $9.97, whatever it is. And then we're monitoring sales. As soon as the ranking starts to fall kind of below a point that we're kind of happy with, guess what? We drop the price back down, 99 cents. And then we kind of do some social media posts. Oh, the book's only 99 cents for a limited time. We get another surge, and then we raise the price back up to $2.99. So we're doing this yo-yo effect where we're balancing the price and the price with what we want are basically the book to accomplish for us. Most of the books that we've had have stayed at number one for months and months and months on end by doing this kind of yo-yo effect, where we don't necessarily just neglect it and set it and let it go. We're still pushing it and still kind of monitoring things. We pull it down and do some promotions. And what we found is that you can actually do this kind of relaunch, the epic launch strategy that we talk about, every 45 to 60 days, bring in a whole new influx of people. So we've tried to do that over and over again to signal to Amazon, number one, that we're very, very serious. And number two, just inject new life and a whole new breed of customers into that book to say at the top of the rankings. So it's worked out really well to do that. But I think the important point is to figure out what works, test what the right price points are for your book, and monitor things. And you'll find within a couple weeks what the right numbers are. So for my book right now, we're bouncing back and forth between $2.99 and $5.99. But then sometimes I may do another free promotion where we bring in another, let's say 30,000 people or whatever. And if I'm getting ready to launch a product or whatever, that's what I would do. But just change it and test and track and keep it moving, I guess.
Yeah. And you mentioned thresholds there. So you're saying that like once the book, if it drops below a certain threshold, you'll drop the price to get it back up the Amazon. And obviously this is the overall Amazon rankings. Do you have a set threshold? Does that vary from book to book?
It really varies. It really varies for book to book. So for instance, with my book right now, we neglected it for a while. I know I'm talking about not neglecting it, but for about a 45-day period, we neglected it just because we had this other business venture going on, and the rankings finally started to fall off. So I kind of got a little slap happy that, you know what, we're stayed at the top for 98 days. We fell off for a few. We went back up to number one for another 15 or whatever. Then we've fallen off since then, since we've started to neglect it. So what our threshold now is to stay on the number one page for our two categories, and the page is the top 20 of your category. So that's kind of the threshold that we have now. So for stocks and for, I think, retirement planning for my book, Make Money, Live Wealthy, the goal is to stay on the top 20, because that first page, you see whatever it is, 170 reviews or whatever, people are going to click on that quite often, right? So that's number one. Early on, it's a little bit different. So maybe the threshold is the top 1,000 page. So we're kind of monitoring that. We want to keep this book in the top 1,000 for a 10-day period or whatever. Maybe we're going back and forth between 99 cents and $2.99 for the majority of that first week before we try to go up to $7.99 or $9.99. It depends, and it's different for each book. It depends on what category, how competitive it is, how many units you're moving and whatnot. So it definitely depends, but it's good to have that number that you're always targeting. Otherwise, you can't fix what you can't measure, right? So that's what we try to think about.
Yeah. I think it's great advice, because obviously if your book is in the top, certainly the top 20, but obviously the higher it is, because you don't want people to scroll down any further than they have to. You're getting the additional organic sales as well, because people are seeing that book more likely than if it was top 20. And something that I think is important to think about is when you're choosing the categories. Obviously, you want to make sure that the categories you choose align with the book, but something that, if you've got a choice of different categories, one of the thing that I think can be useful is to look at the books in those categories and see what kind of rankings they are, see how competitive they are in terms of where they rank on Amazon overall or on Kindle overall. Because, if you pick a super competitive category where, if you're not in the top 500 or the top 800, you're not in the top 20, it's going to be very difficult to maintain that position. Whereas if you've got a category where, if you're in the top 20,000, you'll be in the top 20. It's going to be a lot easier to maintain that long-term, high ranking and getting those organic sales.
Yeah, it's so true. And John, what we tried to do is to get at the top or get in front of as many different Amazon pages as possible. So of course, the higher you go in overall rank, the more different categories that you'll be number one on. But we're also looking to get in the highest. So basically, there's new releases that you can be on the top right, and probably the opposite on the viewers here. And there's also there's highest rating. There's newest or whatever. So there's several different other ways that you can get. There's the homepage. If you make a big enough splash, you can get on the homepage of Amazon. So things where if you get onto basically 5 different high traffic Amazon pages or search terms or whatever it is, you're going to have a long tail, a long drop off. So my goal for my book and for every single client that we bring on, what's the biggest and best keyword that we could potentially rank really high for? We're going after that. For me, it was make money. Make money is searched millions of times within Amazon. How do I get up to be in the top 5 of that? That was my goal. We are still probably number 5. We were in top 3 for months and months and months when people search for make money. Guess what that has? That has a long tail. That has those organic sales that you're talking about. And then we kept our high ranking in the top 25 of business and money for a long time, where that means there's a bunch of different subcategories underneath that. So if people are looking at specific things, mutual funds, investing, stock options, whatever it is, personal finance, they were seeing potentially our book. So the key is, again, that tipping point where you're so many different places, you got so many different opportunities that your book has nothing to do but succeed and to get in front of more people. So that's it.
Yeah. And I like that you're talking about the tipping point, and you basically just been describing different elements of the Amazon ecosystem, whether it be the keywords or the hot new releases or the top ranked or they also bought all of these different things, and by hitting that tipping point within Amazon specifically, you get that long-term result and the long-term sales. And so every book in the world will drops off eventually, but it's going to be a lot more slower. And if you want to do that kind of relaunch that you talked about every 45, 60 days, as well as doing that yo-yo pricing strategy, it's going to be much easier to bounce your book back up higher if you've got those, if you've got that kind of exposure on Amazon. Because, okay, now Amazon's introduced advertising now, so you can advertise your book, but it will also do that for you if you prove yourself, if you prove to Amazon that people like your book. It's got a lot of free prime real estate where it will advertise your book for you, because if you make, if you sell the book, Amazon makes money, you make money, everybody's happy. So yeah, very powerful.
That's such a great point. And what we try to think about, John, is that we've got a boss, and actually we got 2 bosses. One is the customer, the other is Amazon. We are trying to impress Amazon in every way, shape, or form right from the start. We are brown nosing to them. We are getting a ton of reviews, a ton of sales, bringing them in a ton of revenue, bringing a ton of traffic, whatever it is. Like, we are trying to do everything that we can to impress them, because there's no joke about it. Amazon views different books differently. Like there's something in their algorithm that basically signals what books are serious, what books are not. So it's really important to take it seriously so that you can get it on their good list instead of their naughty list, and kind of stay up at the top. Because we've dealt with a lot of books, helping them relaunch, and ones that have done a really poor job from the start. We can get them up there, but we can't keep them up there. And that's, we've seen such a big difference that it's not a matter of necessarily what we do, it's a matter of how Amazon views it. So it shows you the power of really taking it seriously from and impressing Amazon in the way that you talk about.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting point. So that goes certainly beyond, you know, the usual things you think of when we talk about Amazon algorithms. And again, like Google, you know, Amazon don't make it public, but very interesting that initial success and, you know, having a serious book and getting those early results will actually have an effect on the long-term rankings beyond, you know, what you would expect it to do anyway. So,
yeah, it's amazing to see. So as an engineer, I love to try to crack the code and understand these things. Well, Amazon has an amazing code, and they are absolutely brilliant. Like if you try anything, you know, they're ahead of you 2 steps of the game, kind of like Google. So what you just have to really do is learn what works and really focus on that. And again, these small things that just whether they're pieces of knowledge, but actually acting on them will set you apart and make this compound effect that we've talked about several different times. So one of the small elements, but makes a huge impact.
That's good. And so one other thing I want to ask you about before we start to wrap things up is, you mentioned as part of the, you know, the launch campaign, and you get this set up in the pre-launch and so on, and then it goes out through launch, and is social media. And you tell us, you know, which social, there's so many, which channels do you use, and you know, any top tips you've got there, you know, which are the ones you get the best results from?
Yeah, so I would say that the one that we get the best result from is still Twitter. It's still Twitter. So we have, I don't know how many Twitter accounts we have, probably over 25 now, because I mean, we do have a bunch of clients. So when we launched my book, we had between 5 and 10 Twitter accounts. The great thing about Twitter is you can target people using hashtags, and hashtags actually work there, whereas in Facebook you can't do hashtags. I hate Facebook because basically you have to pay to even get a free blog post in front of people, right? And they've done a good job of monetizing, but they've done a bad job of making it worthwhile for self-published authors, unless you have a back end. Twitter and LinkedIn are the 2 primary ones that we use. And what we're doing on LinkedIn is targeting certain groups. So we're doing a lot of work ahead of time figuring out where is our audience. So we're not talking about just Twitter and LinkedIn. We're talking about what small groups, what micro niches, what forums can we get to? What are all these different places? And we list out hundreds of different websites. And again, it's probably more than most people do. But we do that work and have other people do that work, so that we go out there and literally get our books in front of millions upon millions of people, because you can do 2 things. You can spend your time and efforts trying to get in front of an individual, or you can spend your time and efforts trying to get in front of 100 or a group that has 100,000 people, right? Or an influencer that has access to 100,000 people. So we found it's a much better strategy to kind of focus on the big picture and grow exponentially by focusing on more than one. And that's worked out well for us so far. But from a Twitter standpoint, learn what hashtags that you can use, test and track everything, test your different copy. The biggest thing I would say is use pictures and videos wherever possible. And one thing that really helped us really go viral was having a launch team in place, as well as my friends and family share a lot of pictures. So it's one thing if you as the author share a bunch of pictures, but if you have 20 other people start to share cool pictures and picture quotes and themselves with the book, that's huge. Like that just grows in unbelievable ways. So pictures and videos are the most engaging things on social media. So we use those so often. So that's a big thing. But do a blitz. I would say if somebody is like, for instance, from a wealth standpoint, if we talk about my book again, if somebody is interested in investing, retirement, wealth, whatever it is, during that 2-day period where we just did this huge blitz, they had to see my book in some way, shape, or form. So if you get to the point where you're annoying people in your target audience, that means you've done your job from a marketing standpoint. Most people are scared to get to that point where they don't want to market. They're maybe afraid of not necessarily as confident in their work. And that's kind of the way I was. But as soon as we started to have some big momentum, like I hit the accelerator. I was very, very proud to do it then. But a lot of
You
people
definitely
saw
did
our
that, yeah.
books. Yeah, but a lot of people saw our books and changed everything after that. And people were happy to get it. I mean, the book was free at first, and then it went to 99 cents for a day and a half. So it's very, very low cost for people to do. But do it big. Yeah, do it big.
Yeah.
Just prep it in advance. Use hashtags. Go find out what your audience is. Do some work ahead of time to test things, and that'll work out well for you.
And just a quick question with the Twitter, and I guess LinkedIn as well, of course. You mentioned using the hashtags, but are you sending people directly to your Amazon page, or are you directing them to a website? What's the strategy there?
Great question yet again. So it depends. It depends on the client. It depends on what the goals are. The best way to sell is to actually sell through email. Whether it's your email or somebody else's email, that's the single best way to sell. It's hard to sell a book just by somebody clicking a link on Twitter and going to Amazon and charging them $7.99. That's very, very hard to do. We see very low conversions. The better strategy is oftentimes to sell to them indirectly by having a great blog post. Step 2, getting them on the email list. 3, providing value. Step 4, offering them the book. That's how we get $7.99 out of them potentially, right? So you want to have kind of a comprehensive strategy leading up to the launch. We're often building buzz and also building our email list at the same time, because we know the book's it's going to be free. So we're saying, hey, we're going to send you this link while it's free. And some extra bonuses. It's a great way to build an email list building up to the launch. So that's really important. But then on social media, when we are sharing some of the success, like 25,000 downloads in day number 1 alone, 5 stars, yada yada. When we're sharing that, we're putting a direct link to Amazon, right? So it's a good mix. But I think there's no one set way. I think that the best thing is to provide a lot of value. A lot of your own links, your own email signups, Amazon, just really mix it up. Anybody that does the same thing over and over again, it quickly gets drowned out. But the last thing I would say on that is within Twitter, we always change during the launch. We always change the link for our profile to the Amazon link. So we changed the profile and changed the banner image to have the book there and say #1 bestseller. And have the Amazon link, and that's good. So once somebody comes, they see, wow, this is a #1 best-selling author. Like, they're obviously awesome, and they're thinking the credibility thing, and they don't know it's just John, or it's just Austin, right? But no, it's this best-selling author. So that's a lot of words, but hopefully give some people.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's a great. I love the way you've done that. And I like the way you incorporate the social proof and send them direct to Amazon once you've started to get that traction, which is really cool. So. Love it, Austin. You've given us tons and tons of great stuff. So tell people, how can people follow up with you? What's your website? Tell us a little bit about the course and so on.
Yeah, so we've got everything from a do-it-yourself course, which we think it's one of the most comprehensive course. I've gone through so many different trainings myself, and what I wanted to do is put together something that has all of the hacks from everybody that we've learned and put it through step by step, so people go through step by step by step, and anybody can do it. So we have a training, and then we also have a done-for-you service, and the done-for-you service can just launch or relaunch a book for somebody, or we also have basically a business builder package where we help people put together that whole back end so that we make sure that the whole funnel is ready to go. We do this big epic launch and set off the first domino in the system like we talked about, and just let everything go from there. So we've got the kind of the full range, but you can find out more information. It's called the Epic Launch. It's epic-launch.com. And you can see some of the numbers that we've had, see a lot of the different programs. We're actually very, very soon coming out with a lot more programs that will be more specific for each individual person. So we have some even smaller focus things as far as marketing or authorship or just even title ideas and different things. So nonetheless, we're building hopefully this big empire of a lot of information, taking some a lot of the hacks that we've put together and tested out so that people don't have to spend thousands of dollars and guess and different things. We've got the analytics and the numbers behind things to know what works and hopefully put together the whole system that makes that big impact. But again, it's called epic-launch.com, and come say hi.
Yeah. Well, you definitely got the track record and the numbers too, and even the dog agrees. So, so epic-launch.com. Definitely check that out. Austin's numbers are amazing. So, Austin, I want to say a big thank you, first of all, for being a guest on the Self-Publishing Summit. Really good to have you on, and secondly, for giving us great content, great action steps. Really love it. So, thanks, Austin.
Hey, thanks, John. Congratulations again for what you have going on, and everybody keep following John. He knows his stuff. And my dog, or my parents' dog, made it 55 minutes. We were so close, but thanks again for having me on, John.
Great to catch up with you, Austin. Let's talk soon. Bye-bye.